My name is Judith Mitchell. I'm 29 years old, and I've always believed that honesty is the foundation of love. At least that's what I used to tell myself before that Thursday night, the night everything I thought I knew about my boyfriend Edward came crashing down. It had been one of those long, colorless workdays that left me running on caffeine and playlists. I left the office early, arms full of takeout boxes from Edward's favorite Thai place. We'd been together for almost 3 years, and despite our occasional spats about money, who pays for dinner, why he still insists on splitting rent, our relationship felt stable, comfortable, safe. At least that's what I thought. When I reached our apartment, the lights inside were dim. His shoes were by the door. I assumed he was on a call. He worked remotely most days, and I didn't want to interrupt. I unlocked the door, quietly slipped my heels off, and padded toward the kitchen. That's when I heard his voice. "Nah, man, she still thinks I'm living paycheck to paycheck," he said, laughing. 3 years and not a clue. I froze. His voice was clear, amused, casual, in that way people are when they think they're being admired. "Come on, Edward," a friend said through speakerphone. "You serious? You still running that middle-class act?" "Yep," Edward replied. "Best experiment I've ever done. She's sweet, loyal, no idea I could buy and sell the building we live in." My heart stumbled in my chest. He continued, voice light with arrogance. "You should have seen her face when I said we had to wait to get a better couch. She offered to help me save." I almost felt bad. Laughter from the phone. Almost. The takeout bag slipped in my grip, and the clatter of plastic containers echoed too loud in that narrow hallway. His voice stopped mid-laugh. "Babe, that you?" I took a deep breath, forcing my heartbeat to steady. "Yeah," I called out, stepping into the living room. "Got dinner." He stood by the sofa, phone still glowing in his hand, his expression a careful blank. "Hey guys, I'll call you back," he said, quickly ending the call. "You're home early." I smiled faintly, though it felt like my face had cracked to do it. "Surprise. You sounded like you were having fun." He gave a nervous laugh. Just the guys joking around." "Sure," I said softly. "Must have been hilarious." The silence stretched long and thin. I walked past him, set the food on the table, and started unpacking it. Pad Thai, fried rice, spring rolls, our usual. He hovered by the couch like a man waiting for a verdict. "Judith, if you heard something weird." "Weird." I cut in, still arranging plates. "You mean like hearing my boyfriend brag about lying to me for 3 years?" He flinched. "It's not like that." I turned then, finally meeting his eyes. They darted away, then back again, desperate and defensive all at once. "Then what's it like, Edward? You've been pretending to be broke this entire time. Was this all some kind of test?" He ran a hand through his hair. "You don't get it. It's complicated. Try me." He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "After my last relationship, I needed to know if someone could love me, not for the money. So I didn't tell you about my trust fund or the properties. I just wanted something real." "Something real," I echoed. "So you built it on a lie." "It wasn't a lie," he insisted. "It was a social experiment," I snapped. "What were you testing exactly?" "My greed, my IQ." He opened his mouth, then closed it again. Something inside me, something small and fragile, snapped. Maybe it was the memory of every time we'd gone Dutch on a meal, every late-night budgeting talk, every small moment where I'd offered to cover him because he'd said he was short that month. It all clicked painfully. And then something colder took over. I smiled. Just a little, the kind of smile that hides a storm. "That's funny," I said, "because I've been faking something too." He blinked. "What?" I looked him dead in the eye. "Same here." He frowned, confused. "Same here. What?" I didn't answer. I just walked past him, grabbed a plate, and started eating like the ground beneath us hadn't just shifted. The silence was deafening. You could almost hear the air between us go brittle. "Judith," he said slowly, "what do you mean you'll find out soon enough?" His eyes darted to the untouched food. "You're serious?" "Dead serious." He hesitated, then tried to laugh it off. "You're just messing with me." I met his gaze again, steady, calm, unflinching. Am I? Something about the way I said it made him pale. He didn't ask again. I didn't eat much that night. My appetite had gone somewhere cold and unreachable. Edward tried to talk to explain, but every word he said just twisted the knife. "I didn't want you to treat me differently. I needed to know you were real. You'd understand if you knew what it's like being used for money." But all I could think was, how dare you decide I wasn't worth the truth? After dinner, I excused myself to the bedroom, locked the door, sat on the edge of the bed in the dark, listening to the muffled sound of him pacing in the living room. When he finally knocked, his voice was soft. "Judith, can we please talk?" I stared at the door, at the faint shadow of his feet beneath it. "Not tonight, Edward." He lingered for a while, then silence. I sat there for hours thinking about everything. The love I thought we had, the honesty I believed in, and the bitter irony that while he was testing my intentions, I was testing my patience every night. In the glow of the city lights, I whispered to myself, almost laughing at the absurdity of it all. Same here, huh? Little did I know that phrase would unravel both of us completely. When morning came, the air in our apartment felt thick, like walking through fog you couldn't see, but could feel pressing against your skin. Edward was sitting at the dining table, his laptop open, pretending to read emails. His coffee sat untouched. I knew he'd barely slept. I hadn't either. I poured myself some water and leaned against the counter. He didn't look up. "You're really not going to tell me what you meant last night?" he asked quietly. I sipped my water. "You'll figure it out. You're good at pretending, remember." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Judith, come on, I was stupid. Okay, I messed up. But it's not like I cheated. It was just lying," I said flatly, "for 3 years. His jaw tightened. I had my reasons. And I had mine. That made him look up. I met his eyes steady this time. "You're not the only one who was pretending, Edward. I faked things too. Just a different kind." He blinked confused. "What are you talking about?" I gave a soft, bitter laugh. "You know what I'm talking about." His expression shifted slowly from confusion to disbelief, then hurt. "You're saying all those times?" I nodded, every single one. For a long moment, he just stared at me like I'd slapped him. "You're joking." "I wish I were." He stood abruptly pacing, dragging a hand down his face. "That's not the same, Judith. That's God that's cruel." "Cruel," I shot back. "You spent 3 years testing me like a lab rat, Edward. You lied about who you are, where your money comes from, why you couldn't commit. You wanted to see if I was real. Meanwhile, I was lying to protect your ego." His voice rose defensive now. "I didn't do it to hurt you, and I didn't fake pleasure because I wanted to. We both lied, Edward. The only difference is that I did it to make you feel better. You did it to make yourself feel safe." That shut him up. For a few seconds, all I could hear was the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic outside. He finally spoke, voice quieter. "So, this whole relationship, was any of it real?" I hesitated, then said, "That's the problem. I think we both wanted it to be." He leaned against the wall, arms folded, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. "So what now? You just walk away?" "I don't know." He scoffed. "You're serious. You'd throw away everything because I didn't tell you about my bank account." "Because you didn't tell me about yourself," I corrected. "Because you looked me in the eyes over dinner, over birthdays, over every conversation about rent and savings, and let me believe we were struggling together. You lied to me every single day." He swallowed hard. "And you lied in bed every single night. Do you really think that's better?" That one hit deep, too deep. My voice shook when I finally said no. "I think we're both pathetic in our own ways." He flinched like I'd physically struck him. I turned away before I could soften, before guilt could pull me back. "I'm going to stay somewhere else for a while." "Judith, wait." "I'm not breaking up with you," I said. "Not yet. But I can't look at you right now without feeling like I'm looking at a stranger." I walked into the bedroom, opened the closet, and started pulling clothes into a duffel bag. Edward followed me, panic rising in his voice. "Where are you even going?" "To my grandmother's apartment," I said simply. "The one I told you I sold, I didn't. I just didn't want you to think I had a safety net." He froze. "Wait, you have property too?" I zipped the bag. "Yeah." "Surprising, huh? Guess we both have trust issues." "You lied to me about that," he said, voice trembling between anger and disbelief. I turned to face him. "I didn't lie. I just didn't correct your assumptions. You never asked. You liked thinking I needed you." His mouth opened, then closed again. "Feels different when the deception goes both ways, doesn't it?" I said softly. For a moment, he just stood there. Then his voice cracked. "Judith, please, don't do this. Don't leave like this." I slung the bag over my shoulder. "You spent 3 years testing if I'd stay if you were broke. Now you get to see if you'll still fight for me when you're not the one in control." His eyes glistened, but he didn't say another word. I walked out the door, leaving behind the Thai leftovers, the expensive lies, and the ghost of a woman I used to be, the one who thought honesty was a given, not a privilege. Outside, the evening air was heavy and cold. I stood by my car for a moment, staring up at our window, wondering if he was watching. Then my phone buzzed, a message from him. "Edward, you win." I stared at it for a long moment before typing back. "Judith, there's no winning when both people lose the truth." I hit send, started the engine, and drove off into the dark, unaware that this was only the beginning. Because by the weekend, his family would know everything, and they'd make sure to drag me through hell for daring to walk away. I thought leaving would bring peace. Instead, it brought noise, digital, desperate, and relentless. It started the next morning. My phone buzzed nonstop with unknown numbers and unfamiliar names. The first message read, "Hi Judith, this is Linda Rodriguez, Edward's mother. I think we should talk." Then another, "You hurt my son. I raised him better than to be lied to. The least you could do is explain yourself." Then another colder, "He trusted you. You manipulated him. Don't think you can just walk away without consequences." Consequences. That word sat like lead in my chest. I blocked her. 2 hours later, she texted from a different number. And then her sister. And then, unbelievably, his ex-girlfriend, Veronica, chimed in with a screenshot of one of my Instagram photos. "You sure don't look heartbroken here." It was a picture of me at my grandmother's garden, holding a mug of tea. The caption read, "New beginnings." I should have ignored it, but something inside me snapped. "Veronica, the only thing you should be holding is a mirror." I hit send before I could think. That night, Edward called. "Judith," his voice cracked through the speaker. "Please don't engage with them." "Oh, now you care what they say." "I told them to leave you alone. They're just protective." "They're vicious," I interrupted, "and manipulative, just like the son they raised." There was silence on the other end. Then he said quietly, "You don't mean that." But I did. At least in that moment I did. 2 days later, he showed up at my office. My receptionist buzzed me nervously. "Judith, there's a man here to see you. Says it's urgent." My heart sank. When I stepped into the lobby, Edward was there, unshaven, wearing a wrinkled shirt. His usual calm replaced by a kind of frantic energy. He looked like someone who'd been losing sleep and pretending not to care. "Can we talk?" he asked. I crossed my arms. "You already said everything worth hearing." "Not here." He looked around. "Please, somewhere private." I hesitated, then nodded toward the cafe downstairs. 15 minutes. We sat at a corner table. The smell of coffee and pastries couldn't disguise the tension between us. He spoke first. "My mom called you, didn't she?" "Called, texted, emailed. Probably hired a skywriter too," I said. He groaned. "I told her to stop. She thinks she's helping. She's harassing. She's scared for me." I gave a short laugh. Scared of what? That her rich son might finally face a consequence. He leaned forward, voice low. "Judith, I didn't mean for this to turn into a war." I met his eyes. "You started it the moment you decided to test me." He looked down. "I know." The silence between us wasn't peaceful. It was full of all the words we didn't know how to say. Finally, I asked, "Why couldn't you just trust me, Edward? I never asked for anything from you. Not money, not gifts. Just honesty." He swallowed hard. "Because the last time I trusted someone, she used me." "Veronica," I said. His eyes flicked up. "Yeah. She found out about my inheritance. Within a week, she was talking about buying a house together, planning a wedding, introducing me as her fiancé. When I broke up with her, she claimed I'd emotionally defrauded her, tried to sue me for breach of promise." I blinked. "You're kidding." He shook his head. "It didn't go anywhere, but it nearly broke me. After that, I just wanted to find someone who didn't care about the money, someone real." "So you punished me for her sins," I said softly. He didn't argue. He didn't have to. We sat in silence until the waitress came by. I ordered tea. He didn't order anything. When she left, I said quietly, "Edward, do you even realize what you did to me?" He frowned. "I lied, I get that. But I didn't hurt you on purpose." "You made me feel small," I said. "Like I was charity. Like I was this humble, middle-class girlfriend you could hold up as proof that you're still grounded. You used my love to make yourself feel noble." He flinched. "That's not true." "Isn't it?" I leaned closer. "You could have told me the truth any time, but you didn't. Because you liked seeing if I'd stay. You liked watching me struggle and still choose you." He opened his mouth, then closed it again. "I was never auditioning for your affection, Edward," I said, standing. "And I'm not going to start now." I turned to leave, but he grabbed my wrist gently. "Judith, wait." The contact was electric, familiar, dangerous. For a moment, I remembered every night we'd spent laughing in that tiny apartment every morning, coffee, every secret smile. But then I remembered the phone call, the laughter, the lie. "Don't touch me," I said softly. He let go. "I'll handle my family," he murmured as I walked away. "I'm sure you will," I replied without looking back. That night I got an email. The subject line read, "Formal Notice of Claim, Rodriguez Family Representation." My breath caught as I opened it. A law firm logo filled the top of the page. The message was short and clinical. "Our client, Mr. Edward Rodriguez, seeks compensation for emotional distress and reputational damage sustained due to the deliberate deception of Ms. Judith Mitchell, resulting in mental anguish and public embarrassment. Proposed settlement, $100,000. I stared at the number. The absurdity almost made me laugh. Almost. But then the anger hit. Not the sharp, impulsive kind, but the deep, cold anger that hums under your skin like electricity. I picked up the phone and called my lawyer, Stuart. "Hey, Judith," he answered groggily. "You okay?" "Not really," I said. "I think I'm about to make your week a lot more interesting." He chuckled sleepily. "That bad?" "Worse," I said. "We're being sued for emotional distress by a millionaire who lied to me for 3 years." There was a long pause, then a sound halfway between a laugh and a groan. "You're joking." "I wish I were." Stuart cleared his throat. "All right, forward me everything. I'm going to have some fun with this." I did as he said, then turned off my phone. For the first time in days, I sat in silence, real silence. No buzzing notifications, no guilt, no fear. Just the dull ache of disappointment. I thought I'd miss Edward more than I did. But as I lay there staring at the ceiling, I realized something painful and freeing at once. He hadn't broken my heart. He'd just proven it was stronger than I thought. When people say things can't get worse, they're either naive or have never received a legal letter from their ex's family. By Monday, my name was floating around their social circle like gossip perfume, sweet, toxic, impossible to escape. A handful of mutual friends texted me trying to stay neutral. One even said, "Edward's mom is saying you took advantage of him emotionally. Is that true?" I didn't bother replying. If someone could hear a 3-year lie and still wonder who the villain was, they weren't my friend to begin with. Stuart called that afternoon, voice bubbling with restrained glee. "Judith, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever read," he said. "They're claiming emotional distress and reputational harm under an implied good faith relationship clause. That's not even a real thing." I let out a breath that was half laugh, half sigh. "So I'm not going to jail for fake romance crimes," he chuckled. "Hardly. I'm drafting a response that'll make them wish they'd paid their lawyer hourly instead of per tantrum." "Good," I said. "Make it poetic." "Oh, it will be. You want me to go nuclear?" I thought about it for a moment, the humiliation, the messages, the way Edward's mother had painted me as a gold-digging liar while her son was the one who'd been performing poverty like a hobby. "Lightly nuclear," I said. "Just enough to singe." 2 days later, Stuart sent me a copy of his reply. It was brutal and beautiful in equal measure. "Our client, Ms. Judith Mitchell, denies all allegations of deceit. No financial promises were made. No joint assets exist, and no legal or moral basis supports your claim for emotional distress in a non-marital relationship. Furthermore, Mr. Rodriguez knowingly concealed his own financial status for 3 years, indicating mutual deception. In light of this, Ms. Mitchell invites your client to consider who truly defrauded whom." He'd even attached screenshots of Edward's old texts, him insisting they split bills, him joking about being broke again. Each one a nail in the coffin of their narrative. I couldn't help smiling. "You're evil," I told Stuart. "Professionally," he said. "That's what you pay me for." But the thing about truth, it doesn't travel as fast as drama. Within hours, Linda posted something vague but venomous on social media. Some people wear kindness like perfume, cheap, fake, and easy to spot once the scent fades. Her friends flooded the comments with sympathy. One even tagged me asking if this was about Edward's ex. I didn't respond. Instead, I posted a photo of the sunset over the city skyline with the caption, "Peace looks better on me than revenge ever could." It wasn't for them, it was for me. That night, Edward called again. "Judith," he started, voice heavy. "I didn't want any of this, I swear." I stayed quiet. "My mom went behind my back," he continued. "She thinks she's protecting me. I told her to drop it, but she said you humiliated me publicly." "Did I asked calmly, "or did your own actions do that?" He exhaled sharply. "You're still angry." "I'm still disappointed," I corrected. "There's a difference." He hesitated. "Can we talk in person?" "Talk about what?" "About us. About what happened." I almost laughed. "Edward, you hired a lawyer before you called me. There's nothing left to talk about." "I didn't hire them," he said quickly. "She did. My mom. I didn't even know until she forwarded me the email." I paused, skeptical. "So you're saying your mother just decided to sue your ex-girlfriend without your consent?" "Yeah," he said softly. "And I didn't stop her fast enough." For a moment, something in me softened. I wanted to believe him, wanted to think maybe he was trapped in his mother's manipulations, just like I had been trapped in his lies. But then I remembered that voice, the arrogance, the laughter, the experiment. "Edward, I said the problem isn't that your mom's controlling. It's that you let her be." He went quiet. "That's not fair." "It's true." I could hear him breathing heavily on the other end, searching for the right words. Finally, he said, "I miss you." I closed my eyes. You miss the version of me who didn't know the truth. Click. I ended the call. A week later, the law firm sent a second letter, this time doubling down, demanding $250,000 in recognition of emotional damages. Stewart called, laughing so hard he could barely speak. They're escalating. Oh, Judith, this is gold. I'm framing these emails. Can we countersue for stupidity, I asked. He snorted. Sadly, no. But we can bury them in legal citations until their retainer runs dry. I smiled faintly. Do it. By the second week, Edward's sister Brianna sent me a voice message. Her tone was condescendingly sweet. Hey, Judith. Look, you and my brother clearly had issues, but this whole thing is embarrassing for everyone. If you just issue a public apology and maybe offer some kind of settlement, we can all move on. Okay. I listened twice, then hit delete. No response. Let them stew. And yet, late at night, when the apartment was quiet and the city hum slipped into background noise, I'd still think about him, about the way he used to brush my hair back when I was ranting, the way he'd kiss my forehead before leaving for work, the way he'd whisper, "We'll figure it out, baby," when I was worried about rent, never telling me he already had millions sitting in a trust fund. Love, I realize, doesn't always end with hate. Sometimes it just collapses under the weight of truth. By the end of the month, Stewart called with final news. Good news, my favorite client. The law firm quietly withdrew their claim. No settlement, no follow-up. They're done. I exhaled slowly, relief and disbelief tangled together. Just like that. My guess. They finally realized suing someone for not loving you properly isn't exactly a winning case. I smiled. I owe you dinner. You owe me your firstborn child, he said dramatically, but dinner works. When we hung up, I sat by the window, the evening sun bleeding gold across my walls. My reflection looked calmer, older somehow. 3 years of my life had burned down to ash, but at least the fire was over. Or so I thought. Because a week later, I walked into the lobby of my building and found Edward waiting there, looking like the ghost of every almost happy ending. He straightened when he saw me. Judith, please, just 5 minutes. My heart sank, but I didn't turn away. 5 minutes, I told myself. What could possibly go wrong in 5 minutes? I was about to find out. When the elevator doors opened and I saw him standing there for a moment, I forgot to breathe. Edward looked nothing like the man I'd left weeks ago. His usual calm confidence was gone, replaced by something raw and restless. His shirt was perfectly pressed, his hair styled, but his eyes, they told a different story. He'd been losing sleep. Judith, he said, taking a step forward, you look good. I didn't bother smiling. You shouldn't be here. I know, he said softly, but I needed to see you, to say this in person. I folded my arms, standing between him and the elevator. You could have said it over text. That's how your family prefers to communicate, isn't it? He winced. I deserve that. No, I said. You deserve a restraining order. You let your mother drag my name through the mud and thought an apology at the lobby would fix it. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I told her to stop. She finally dropped everything. The case, the posts, everything. I stared at him, searching for any sign of another trick. And why should I believe that? Because he said, his voice breaking slightly, I made her. That made me pause. You what? I told her I'd cut her off. Financially. Completely. She was furious, but she stopped. I didn't respond. I didn't know if I was supposed to feel vindicated or sad that it took a threat to his wallet for him to grow a spine. He took a careful step closer. Judith, I'm sorry. I shook my head. You've said that before. This time I mean it. And the other times, he flinched. Those too. Just not like this. There was a tremor in his voice that wasn't there before. A humility I'd never seen from him. But the anger inside me wasn't gone. It had just learned to stay quiet. Edward, I said carefully, you didn't just lie to me. You built a whole version of yourself, a character, and then asked me to fall in love with him. You perform for me every day. He nodded, eyes glistening. I know. I thought I was protecting myself. And I thought I was protecting you, I said softly. We both lied for love, but all we did was make sure neither of us ever felt it honestly. He exhaled sharply, looking away. You make it sound so hopeless. Maybe it is. He looked back at me. Does that mean you don't love me anymore? The question hung between us like smoke, fragile, suffocating, impossible to ignore. I swallowed hard. I don't know if I ever loved you. I think I loved the idea of you, the man who struggled with me, the one who made me feel like we were building something together. He took a step closer. And what if I could be that man now? You can't, I said. Because you never were. Silence. Then he laughed quietly, the sound brittle. You always were good at ending things with a line that sticks. Maybe that's because I learned it from you, I said. He smiled faintly, sadly. You're stronger than I gave you credit for. I always was, I replied. You just weren't looking. He hesitated, his gaze flickering between the elevator and me. Judith, please. Just tell me if there's any chance. Any at all. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of everything we'd been through. There's a version of us that could have worked, I said finally. But it died the moment you decided to test me instead of trust me. His face fell. I stepped closer just enough that he could see the tears in my eyes, but not close enough for him to touch me. You wanted to know if I'd still love you if you were broke. The answer is yes, I did. But now that I know who you really are, I don't love that man. He opened his mouth, then closed it again, eyes glistening. I dropped the lawsuit, he said quietly, almost desperate. I told my mom I was wrong. I told everyone. Isn't that worth something? It's worth exactly what honesty is supposed to be worth, I said. Everything if it comes before the lie. Nothing if it comes after. For a moment, he just stood there, his composure unraveling. Finally, he whispered, You know what the worst part is? I actually loved you, more than anyone. I gave a sad smile. Then maybe you should have started there, Edward. With love, not fear. He blinked hard, jaw trembling. So this is it. This is it. He nodded slowly. Then can I ask one last thing? I hesitated. What? He swallowed. Were you really, faking it that whole time? Despite everything, I almost laughed. Doesn't matter. He gave a small, defeated smile. I guess not. I tilted my head, meeting his gaze one last time. For what it's worth, you would have liked the truth a lot better than the lie. The elevator chimed behind me. The door slid open. He watched as I stepped inside, still rooted to the marble floor, like a man realizing too late what he'd destroyed. As the doors began to close, he whispered, Goodbye, Judith. I held his gaze until the metal sealed between us. Goodbye, Edward. And that was the last time I ever saw him. That night, I sat by my window, watching the city lights blur into gold and white streaks. It was strange, the ache in my chest wasn't sharp anymore. It was quiet, like the echo of a song that had finally ended. I picked up my phone, scrolled to our old messages, and hovered over his name. Then I deleted the thread. Not out of anger, out of acceptance. Some stories don't need closure, they just need to stop. 6 months have passed since the day the elevator doors closed on Edward for the last time. It's strange how peace doesn't arrive all at once. It sneaks in quietly like morning light slipping through the blinds. You don't notice it until you realize you've gone a whole day without checking your phone for a message that isn't coming. I moved out of my grandmother's old apartment a few weeks ago. It had served its purpose, a safe place to breathe again. Now I rent a small place closer to the design studio where I work. It's got big windows, plants that keep dying and coming back, and a balcony that catches the sunrise perfectly. Edward's name doesn't come up much anymore. Occasionally someone mentions him in passing, how his company expanded, how he was seen with someone new, but I don't feel anything sharp when I hear it. Just a dull warmth, like remembering an old scar. For a while I kept wondering if I'd ever trust anyone again, if love would always feel like a test. But then I met Noah. He wasn't anything like Edward. No polished arrogance, no cryptic charm, just honest, grounded, unpretentious. We met at a friend's small art show, both reaching for the same glass of cheap red wine. He smiled first. It wasn't the kind of smile that tries to impress. It was the kind that makes you breathe easier without knowing why. We started talking, then texting, then meeting for coffee. On our third date, as we walked along the river, he said, So tell me something about you that's not Instagram friendly. I laughed. You sure? Yeah, he said. I like the messy stuff. The honest kind. So I told him. Everything. The experiment, the lies, the lawsuit, the heartbreak, the way I faked happiness for years because I was too afraid to lose someone who never existed. He didn't interrupt, didn't joke, just listened, hands in his pockets, nodding every now and then. When I finished, I waited for the discomfort, the look of pity or judgment. Instead, he smiled softly. Cool, he said. You're paying for dessert then? I laughed for real that time. A laugh that felt unshackled, unfiltered mine. That's when I realized something honesty doesn't scare the right person away. It only filters out the wrong ones. Sometimes I still think about Edward not with bitterness, but with a kind of detached empathy. He was never a monster, just a man afraid to be seen without his armor. I think part of him wanted to love me honestly. He just didn't know how. There's one memory that always comes back. It was our 2nd anniversary. We'd spent the evening in making pasta from scratch, because eating out was too expensive. He'd spilled flour all over the counter, laughing as I tried to scold him. For a few hours, we were just two people trying to make something together. It was simple, real. If only he'd realized that was enough. I used to think truth was supposed to hurt. that it always came wrapped in confrontation and loss. But now I know truth can be quiet. It can be gentle. It can sound like a man saying, "Tell me the messy stuff." Last week, Noah and I took a weekend trip to the mountains. Just the two of us, a small cabin, and a storm that rolled in faster than we expected. The power went out around midnight, so we lit candles and sat by the fireplace. He asked me if I ever regretted what happened with Edward. I thought about it for a long moment before answering. "No," I said, because if I hadn't gone through that, I wouldn't have learned how to stop performing. I wouldn't have learned what real peace feels like. He smiled and kissed my hand. "You've got a good way of turning pain into wisdom." I chuckled. Occupational hazard of surviving it. When I got home the next day, I found a letter in my mailbox. No return address, but the handwriting was familiar. Edward's. My hands trembled as I unfolded it. It was short. "Judith, I know I don't deserve to take up space in your life anymore. I just wanted to say that I finally understand what you meant when you said we both lied for love. I've been trying to be honest with people now. It's harder than pretending, but it's real. I hope you're happy. You always deserve to be. Edward." I stood there for a long time holding the letter. Then I smiled, not because I missed him, but because I didn't. I folded it once, placed it in the drawer with my old journals, and whispered, "Good for you." Then I went to the kitchen, brewed tea, and texted Noah, "You still owe me dessert." As the sun dipped below the skyline, I sat by the window, feeling that soft, quiet peace again. I thought about everything Edward and I had been, the lies, the lessons, the collapse, and realized something simple, something freeing. Honesty doesn't guarantee happy endings. It just guarantees real ones. And real, I've learned, is better than perfect. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's